Hello, hello, hello. So one of the main things that people are going to notice when they get to your channel, whether it's YouTube or whether it's Twitch or anything like that, is going to be your audio. Audio is extremely important and unfortunately really overlooked. Even I overlooked it initially. So while there are definitely a ton of people that can probably explain this a little bit better and help you out in a tremendous way in comparison to what I can do, today we're going to talk about 3 different settings that you can add to your OBS Studio program right now that will increase your audio quality substantially. Let's check it out. So if you've been on this channel before, you know that gear and reviews of gear and updating equipment and updating settings is not typically what we do here. But this is such a low-hanging fruit, and so many different people have been asking how to increase their microphone quality when streaming or filming. So I figured I might as well go ahead and show some quick tips on what we can do to get it fixed. So in this video, I'm going to be explaining 3 different filters that you can add to OBS Studio specifically. And those are noise suppression, noise gates, and compression. If you pop these 3 different filters into your microphone, it will automatically increase your audio quality substantially. So let's go ahead and just jump on into looking at OBS Studio and take a quick peek at it. Okay, so this is OBS Studio. We've got up here behind the veil moment going on right now. I don't typically use OBS Studio right now. I've used it for other work-related things, but the principle still remains. I still use the similar settings with this microphone. Just in case you're curious, this microphone I'm using is a Sennheiser E835. So I bought this microphone when I was in high school, when I was doing vocals for a metal band. Conversation for another day. But coincidentally, here I am 29 years old and I'm able to use this while I'm making this video. But here we are. So in this setup here, you obviously see that I have a microphone in right now. And let's go ahead and take a look at the filters that we have. So as you can see, like I was saying before, we have noise suppression, noise gate, and a compressor. So talking about these very briefly, just so you gain a little bit of an understanding of what the purpose of each of these is before we talk into the details. Noise suppression is designed to take some of the more room noise frequencies and draw them out of your line signal. So a lot of the room noise, fan noise, and things like that, the hope is that it diminishes that frequency range. Second in the path is going to be noise gates. Noise gates kind of act like a door opening and a door closing. So when a certain amount of noise comes through the signal, it opens the door. And when just enough of that noise is gone, it closes the door. It's like an on-off switch, but it waits for you to set the settings for how much noise you want to come through for it to open, if that makes sense. And lastly, a compressor is designed to create a uniform dynamic across all of your sounds. And we'll talk about what that kind of means in general. But noise suppression, talking about that very literally, I've had no issues with this one. It has worked great when I just upload the default filter settings, but very literally the way that this is supposed to be set is you can increase the decibels to raise those frequencies we were talking about that are typically unwanted, or reduce them very basically so you don't have nearly as much. I typically keep the default settings on here when using noise suppression, and it typically works pretty well for me. The noise gate is the one that's a little bit finicky, and it's going to change drastically based on what your situations are with your microphone, with your room, with just several different things surrounding the sounds that are going on around you in your microphone. But very plainly, if we're talking about what these general specifics are, is that the open threshold means that in order for the microphone to open or make a sound in OBS, it has to at least reach a negative 38 decibels for it to actually make any noise. Similarly, when it comes to closing the threshold, if it makes any less of a noise, for example, if I'm beginning to end a sentence and I'm no longer making the noise needed to keep the threshold open, it will begin to close. In other words, shut off, which very generally brings us to these 3 small points here, and I'll give you some quick hits on it. Attack time is the time in which it reaches the needed volume to open, and the amount of time taken for it to actually open and turn completely on. The hold time is the minimum amount of time that it will actually stay open once you've reached that threshold of volume. And then lastly, the release time is the amount of time that it will choose to fall off. So once it falls below the closing amount, it will begin to taper off in 150 milliseconds, according to what my settings are right now. And that brings us lastly to the compressor. Compressors are highly misunderstood, and coming from a guitar background on my side of things, it makes a little bit more sense to me, but I'll try and translate it as best I can right now for you guys. So earlier I said that a compressor acts to have an even keel of dynamics across all of your sounds. So let me give you an example. When you listen to music and you hear drums in the music, especially a kick drum, that kick drum tends to have only a certain number of varying dynamic sounds. In other words, meaning when someone kicks it, it typically has that same intensity. So the dynamics needed to cover the range that it wants to be are very small. This is where things called a ratio comes in. A ratio meaning how many variances of dynamic volume it can have. So while a kick drum is very low in its ratio, somewhere between a 1:2 or 1:4, depending on what your actual need for that instrument is, a voice is much different. A voice has many different timbres and many different enunciations that comes into play when it comes to the dynamic range that it has. At the same time too, when you're filming or streaming or anything like that, you do want to have a grip on the dynamic range that you have as a person speaking into the microphone. Because the last thing you want to do is absolutely blow the ears off of your viewers at any point in time in the video or stream. So because of that, you see on my settings, I have a 1:10 ratio, is what you see there. The reason for that is because it has 10 variances of dynamic range on what my voice will have. And similarly, these are the settings, again, the threshold that I need to reach for the compressor to kick in, the amount of milliseconds it takes for the compressor to actually come in as the attack, and the release is the amount of time that the compressor falls off. Very similar to the noise gate. The last thing I'll mention inside of this is that I do have an output gain increase on the compressor itself. Now, the reason that I have this may be different than what your needs are. The microphone I was telling you guys about earlier actually has a very low output. In other words, the volume of the microphone itself is not super great. And so on the audio interface that I'm using, I'm pushing it pretty hard right now. I think I have it at almost turned to 9 out of 10 input gain on that. So because of that, I'm having to push it a little bit more in the compressor just to give it a little bit more volume push into OBS. So I know that all three of these different things are fairly confusing in nature when you don't have any experience having dealt with them before, but generally speaking, if you add these three in and just begin to play with them a little bit based on the different information that we talked about today, the hope is that you're going to get some great audio responses. At the very least, I can guarantee you that if you just add in some of the bass presets that are in here on the filters of OBS, you're automatically going to get a better audio outcome if you didn't have any out before. So hopefully this quick hit video helped you guys out a little bit today when it comes to filming in OBS or streaming in OBS or anything like that. If this video helped you out in any way, please feel free to share it with any of your friends that might be streamers or content creators, as I'm sure that it would definitely help it out with them. If you'd like to see more videos like this or just conversations about how I do my setups too, feel free to drop a comment in the comment section below. And to support additionally too, if you could hit that like button, the subscribe, and click the bell for notifications, you're going to get updates for future videos we have coming down the pipes. Thanks again for checking this out. I hope you guys have a great day and hope to see you on the stream. See you then.